So here's the thing. I'm having to kind of go back in time and do an intro to the video of making this jumper because I can't find the intro that I did before. So I just wanted to say that the jumper is very easy. I mean, I could easily see a very inexperienced, new to sewing individual breezing through this. There's only one snag, and we'll get to that while I'm doing it, but it's not really a snag. It's just maybe a bit of terminology that you might not be familiar with if you haven't done this type of sewing before. But if you want to do a relatively easy, quick, fun, and obviously wearable jumper for fall, or even just a cute little summer dress out of a cotton or just a lightweight fabric, this would be a good one. And if you can't find this pattern in particular, and this is the McCall's 1 hour jumper, 82.90, and this happens to be size AX, which is 4, 6, and 8. Don't stress about that, because there are others that are very similar with basically the same instructions. This is also a McCall's. It's the Easy Stitch and Save 9438. This is a slightly larger sized pattern from size, it's an A, but it's size 8 or 6 to 12. So it's 6, 8, 10, 12. Basically, literally the same pattern. I haven't looked at one thing, and I'm going to do that real quick just to make sure that it is the same, and that way I will feel a lot better about saying that it is. This pattern also includes a shirt. So yes, this right here, the way you finish off the top of the strap on this one is absolutely 100% the same as the one that will be in the video moving forward. So if you are unsure, if you can't find this particular pattern, or you can't find it in your size, I did find this on Etsy. This I purchased on Amazon, but it was through a shop on Amazon. I can't remember the name of it. I'll try to find that video. But in any case, this one is a rounded neck, and it has a two-piece front with a seam down the middle, and then a one-piece back. There's no button. There is no zipper. It is a pull-on over your head jumper. This one is a little bit shorter than this one, and that is really the only difference. This might be a little slightly lower neckline, and you can adjust your neckline. Just you know, use one of your favorite outfits to adjust it, and I'll talk about that in another video sometime. But in any case, these two are similar. This is the next one in line. So I finished this one with the exception of the hem. I am allowing the jumper to hang on a coat hanger so that the fabric can relax completely before I hem it. But anyway, so this one is all done, and this one will be coming up in probably within a couple of days. So here's the fabric. Look at that. Oh my goodness. This will go straight into my thread catcher. I really should have realized that it would also shred through the selvage. It just didn't occur to me. But there you have it. And there is quite a lot. I'm going to match up my selvage and refold. Okay, it's a nice good weight flannel that looks like a wool, and I'll tell you, it's warm. Let's try a universal non-microtex number 8012. 2 layers of fabric. Yes, this is the one. Okay. Oh, before I do, I've got to find out from Jessica. So what I'm going to have her do is measure one of her dresses that she likes the length on, and then just, if she's got a measuring tape, just give me that measurement. Okay, so I need a 38-inch finished hem for Jessica. So here are my pattern pieces, and I think that's everything. Let's take a look. So we have front facing, back facing, for 40-inch. To my knowledge, because we're not doing pockets, these should be the only pattern pieces that I need. Okay. So they have a note here that says the finished garment measurements at bust and or hip printed on your pattern tissue equal body measurement plus wearing ease plus design ease. And I need to get another measurement for her. I totally forgot. Her measurement is exactly what it needs to be right here. So we're going to look at the guide. We have our cutting layout and we have a guide. The black area denotes fabric. It says that right there. Pattern pieces are to be placed with the printed side up, if you see that. Pattern pieces are to be placed with the printed side down, if you see that. So on ours, we have both, view B, we have both jumper front and jumper back are pattern pieces face up. No matter which way, if we're using the cutout for extra wide fabric or if we're using the cutout for your typical 45-inch wide fabric, we're still going to have the jumper pieces face up. So let's see. Piece 2 is cut on the fold. Piece 5 is not. Now what I need to do in my super limited space. Okay, so because Jessica wants this dress longer than the dress is here, I am going to cut right here. You're supposed to cut along this dotted line, and it will give you an inch. And then there is another way to lengthen, and it will give you another inch. I need to have 4 inches, not 2. This is the middle piece, and if I line it up on the fold, like so, I won't lose the flare of the dress. In the way the dress fits around the legs. Pin this here. So I'm still on the fold, and I've still got this nice flare. All right, and then this right here is also on the fold. And I'm going to keep that edge right there on the fold. And that will give me a little bit more than an inch, obviously. I'm not like that. Why is there a... Oh my goodness. All right, my dears, so I have cut the pattern at the cut line to lengthen for a little bit longer hem. And the way we do this is we line the center back. We're going to be placing this on the fold, and we just do this as if this were one big piece. So we're going to put this one here on the fold. Did I have this pattern piece turned around and going back? Yes, I did, but I'll just admit it. What happened is I flipped the pattern around so that I could work from the hem up. Well, obviously I have a notch right here, and I thought, why is that on a fold? Well, it's on a fold because you've got the pattern piece upside down. That's why. Okay. So now we have the middle piece, and as far apart as I want these to go, all I have to do is measure. So they're telling me that this is 1 inch, and if I pull this down to here, then I should have added an inch, which I've done. However, I need to add more than an inch to this jumper. So I'm going to put a pin here in the fabric, and I'm going to put a pin here in the fabric, and I'm going to slide this down. Okay, now let's measure and see if we have 2 inches. We do. All right, we have 2 inches. And I'm going to pin it and pin it, and keep pinning it. Okay, now there's 18. No, I can't do it like that. It's too heavy. I'll have to do it like this. Okay, good. I'm right at 41 inches. That's perfect. Get off there. Okay, so that gives me very much what I need in terms of length, and everything is the same. I haven't changed the pattern this way. I've only changed it this way. I'm going to make myself a note that I added 3 inches, so I'll know to do that to the front. So I have a line right here of chalk to help me remember to just keep cutting. I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. So what I'm doing is I'm using a piece of paper to kind of help guide me between these two. Like so. I have another line. Alright, I'm going to use my Kai fabric scissors if I can. Here they are. Okay. Alright, so we have the back and we have it cut to the proper length. I'm happy with it. I think we'll be in good shape. I'm not going to take the pins out. I'll just fold it up like this. There will be some that poke out like that. Just be mindful of it and don't hurt yourself. There may be some markings on here that I will need to make. Ouch. Okay, as she says, don't hurt yourself, and then stabs her hand. So what I have to have is 40 inches. Or 41 inches, and then I have this much right here for the facings, which is plenty. Okay. Alright, so let's get this other piece cut. We're going to be cutting out 2 of these, not on the fold. want my sewing machine set at 2.5. Straight stitch, needle down, I'm ready to go. Let me back you up just a little bit so you can see a little bit better. So these are the facings that go to the jumper. Now one thing I have not cut out yet is interfacing, which I will do shortly. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so this is the back piece. It's just one, and it is cut on the fold for this particular view, which is obviously view B. So I had to do the exact same thing in the front. So I added 3 inches here and here to match with the back, and these are the 2 front pieces because the front piece is seamed in along this front seam right here. Nothing changes on the facing pieces when you have to add or length or shorten the length on the jumper pieces. So I'm going to need 1 piece of interfacing for this. Cut 1 back interfacing and 1 facing. Cut 1 of the front facing and 1 interfacing. And the word facing and interfacing sound similar, but they are completely different types of fabrics. So let's start with our instructions and see what we are meant to do. The instructions that have suddenly vanished. Ah, there they are. Okay, so first things first, for this lovely jumper. And if you're new here, first of all, thank you and welcome. And secondly, I did go over this fabric in a video, I think about 3 videos back. This is a flannel fabric that looks like a wool tweed. It has been pre-washed and it's very soft. I think it'll be a perfect little jumper. I washed it in hot water and I dried it in a hot dryer, so there should be 0 shrinkage. Alright, we've already cut this out, so let's just get here. We're going to look at the fronts and the backs. So for all views, for every single view, A, B, C, and D, we are supposed to make the darts in the front and fold right sides together, matching on those dotted lines. So these are the type of darts that this pattern has decided to use. And when you look at the pattern piece on the front, it's right here. This is what that looks like. I've not marked this yet, but I'm going to. The other thing is the fabric for this jumper is cut out with the fabric face up, I believe. Both pieces were meant to be face up. So what I'm looking at on this is the front, the outside of the fabric, the right side, meaning I don't want to mark on this side. I want to mark on the other side. So I need to get my pin cushion. And I'm fortunate that this is a small piece now that it's been cut down. It will be easy to mark it the way I want to. And the way that's going to be is I'm going to fold this down and flip this piece over like so. Okay. And for size 4, I'm going to put a pin here. Okay. right here. I may end up having to use, yeah, I'm going to have to use my friction pen. I really don't want to on this fabric, but don't have a choice. Okay, so there's that. And it actually works just fine. It should come right out. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark it. I'm looking at the size 4 dots. So that one. Okay, so there's that dart right there. Alright, so the next step after we mark those darts is to stitch on the dotted line, which is what we drew, and then we're going to press the fold of the dart down. So first stitching is the darts. Okay, now let's take a look. So we have the front 2 pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that I've stitched. I'm going to use pins to stitch along this line and pins to stitch along the other line, like so. Because darts will get you if you mark them on the wrong side or you stitch them on the wrong side. And in this particular case, I believe we are fine. We have one dart on each side, and this would be that front seam. And I don't back stitch on the top point of a dart. I will tie that in a knot when it's finished, but I don't like the look that I get if I back stitch. It tends to be kind of bunched up right there on that little point. Now I'm going to hand crank down to the point. Oh, forgot to raise my, press my feed dogs. There we go. Okay, I'm not stitching over a pin. Okay, now I have 2 places on this where I need to tie a knot. One is at the top of the dart. I'm going to take these 2 threads and I'm going to loop them over and loop them over again for a double knot. I'm going to tie it without pulling it so tight that it distorts the fabric, and then I'm going to do a double knot again. We don't want this to come undone. Alright, trim these threads. Same thing down here. And when you flip this over, you don't have that distortion that you would get right here with this fabric all scrunched up from being stitched and then backed up and then stitched over again. And on this side, we're going to press the dart toward the hem. All right, we're not doing a pocket, so I can completely ignore, completely ignore this part right here. This is not even going to be part of the construction of this particular jumper, nor will this be, because this is making the pocket and this is attaching the pocket, not doing any of that. So I will go straight from the dart creation to the center seam stitch, which is coming up. But I want to decide how I'm going to finish off that center seam. Do I want to, how do I want to do that? What I might do is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Let's see what it says. Doesn't say. Use a 5/8 inch seam allowance unless otherwise specified. Use guideline marking on the throat plate of your sewing machine for an accurate seam allowance. You can also put a piece of tape, or you can use a guide. There's guides that you can buy. Okay, press the seams open unless otherwise stated, and then you can also just do this with an overlock. So my plan is to do a French seam, and I'll show you that when I come back. They're showing the top stitch on my left right here, as you can see, which means that this little seam in the back will be folded and pressed to the left, and then I will be stitching it down along this line right here. So I'm going to go press it and get it ready, and then I'll just do that nice little top stitch all the way down the front. And the next step after that, looking ahead, is we're going to stitch the front and the back at the sides. So let's look at, before I sew it, let's look at the back. So this is the inside of the jumper. That's that front seam. It has not been stitched down yet with that top stitch, but that's where I will stitch, is right along here. And all I have to do is make sure that the seam stays to this side over here, like so. And I think because this is thick, and it's not a construction stitch, I'm just going to use a 3.0 as a decorative top stitch. It will be a little bit easier on my sewing machine. So I'm going to let this edge of this foot ride right along the seam. That'll help me keep things kind of straight. Now I do have some threads that I noticed down here on the very end as I was doing that top stitch that I need to remove. So we'll go ahead and take care of that so I don't forget. Alright, and that's the front with the top stitching on that seam taken care of. So now right sides together, we will be attaching the front to the back. And the back is just one piece, and it did not have darts. So now, right sides together, and we don't do the shoulders, we just line up the side seams, and we'll pin these. Remember that the dart, the extra fabric on the dart is supposed to point down, not up. Make sure that the pleat is pressed toward the bottom of the jumper. Okay, there we go. Now let's just take a look at the instructions to make sure I haven't forgotten something. Step that we just finished, and now we're moving on to the facings. View A is shown, but basically it's the same thing for all of the views. I don't know if any of that was recorded. Oh, that drives me nuts. Okay, I'll explain what I'm doing in just a minute. Since I'm not sure that that was even captured on the video that I just did, I'll explain how I had enough to do 2 separate pieces for the back. This right here. This is the back facing. And I cut out 2 separate pieces of interfacing. Now I'm just going to trim it to match the actual facing. The next step after we do that is to stitch the front facing to the back facing at the sides. And you want to cut the interfacing close to the stitching, but in my case that's not necessary. That's only if your interfacing is not glued to your fabric. They want us to finish the curved, unnotched edge of the facing with a zigzag stitch, or turn under 1/4 inch on the raw edge, and edge stitch with a conventional machine. That is what I'm going to do because I think it'll look neater on the inside. Alright, so these have been finished, and now, because I did it, you know, my way, I will stitch these at the side using a straight stitch. So you match up those right sides together. And we're going to go 2.5, 2.5. And I think you can see why I chose not to finish it off before I got to there. So I'll just flip this under and then do another little bit of a zigzag, and the whole entire facing is now edge finished. Next step is to pin the facing to the jumper right sides together. So we'll turn the jumper to the right side, since it's still wrong side out. Okay. We should see 2 sets of shoulders, which would be the front and the back. And we're going to take the back of the jumper, which would be this one right here, and place it over the top like so, so that the right side of the back of the jumper and the right side of the facing are matched up, and pin these shoulders together. And same thing on the other side, like so. Make sure that the side seams are where they're supposed to be, and then the front of the jumper is attached in the same way to the front of the facing and the inner facing, like this. Just match up your notches. I'm pinning on either side of the notches. So I've got my notch right there, I've got a pin here, and I'm going to put another pin right there. Just like that. Okay. Now we should have 2 notches on the front of the facing, 2 notches on the front of the jumper, which we do. And I'm going to pin those vertically, like so. They're matched up. Go around, maybe put another pin on the shoulder strap, right around the neck edge. Now there is a certain way that we're going to be attaching the top. So make sure that when they tell you where to start stitching, that's where you start stitching. If you start up here, you're going to not be able to finish off the inside of your shoulder straps the way that they should be, so that it looks seamless and all one piece. Okay, so they're going to tell you pin the jumper right sides together, matching the notches, the centers, the side seams, and having pressed under shoulder edges of the facing 5/8 of an inch from the shoulder edges of the jumper. So we're going to start stitching the neck edge and stitch the armhole edges. So there is a photo, well, not a photo, there's a line drawing that shows Let's see if I can get this where you guys can see it. This shoulder seam does not have a stitching line across it, but they have stitched from the top of this all the way around to the top of the other side on the front, and the same thing on the back, and then underneath the armholes, the arm side. So I'll show you on mine what they're talking about. Okay, this is the front right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch from here around to here, and we're going to stop. We're not going across either one of these. We're going to stitch from here underneath the arm side all the way around under the arm and up to lay flat. To the top of the back. Okay, same thing on the other side. So now I'm on the back of the jumper, and I'm going to go around just like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the side. This is the side seam right here, so we're going to go up to the top and we're going to stitch like so. But as you can see, we have not stitched any of these top edges. Now the main thing we have to remember to do is fold this down 5/8 of an inch right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and pin it like so. And you want to do that on all four. We've got everything the way it's supposed to be. Now just remember, we don't stitch across the top, the actual jumper top. We have the facing top pinned down 5/8 of an inch, like so, and we're going to stitch that down right along this edge right here. This top part needs to stay free. Okay, but I've got it in there, and it's that, and everything is good. Alright, so now I am going to start on the back and work my way around to the front, making sure that everything is lined up and looks pretty. Alright. And as I sew and check to make sure that everything looks like it's supposed to look. I'm also looking behind my needle. If I don't see stitches back here, then I know that my bobbin thread has broken or I've run out of bobbin thread. So behind my needle back here, I'm looking for that. And then I'm going to take a picture of what I'm talking about so that I can show you on the video what I am talking about. We've stitched all the stitches. So the next thing I need to do is cut all the excess threads, which there will be several, like so, and like so. That'll be on the inside, so that doesn't matter, and that looks pretty good. Alright, so the next thing to do is, remember, the jumper portion is it's right side out. The facings are what need to be flipped around. But before we do that, we need to clip these curves and make these look nice. Back neck. So if I have my duckbill scissors, which that's what these are, they're bent so that you can cut flat like this. That little bend right there, kind of, it's an offset to help you get closer to what you're trimming. All right, and we're going to do that with the back neck edge. Now you can definitely still make a mistake and cut through your fabric with a duckbill, but it is a little less likely. You just still have to be careful and, you know, take your time. And I'm going to use my regular Kai scissors to clip in. And I'm trying to be very mindful of my fabric. If your fabric is really lightweight, you won't need to do as much. If your fabric is really heavy, like a really stiff, you know, large corduroy, you might want to think about how much of that you want to cut away, and you might want to consider clipping in the corners a little bit more than you might on a thinner fabric. Once you're garment is put together, or whatever it is that you are using notches for, once it's stitched together, you can just cut the notches away. It's excess fabric in your seam allowance that you just don't need. So my recommendation is that you go ahead and cut that away, get it out of the way of the seam, especially if it's something that you'll be flipping on top of itself like we're about to do with this. And I'm trying to make sure that I get, you know, a pretty good amount of this cut out so that my seams will be nice. Okay, very good. So now we're going to turn this through. And there should be a place at the very top where you kind of have a hole, where the top facing and shoulder open up like that on all 4 of these. Just flip them around to look like so. Okay. And the last one right here. All right. It looks really weird, I know. You're probably thinking, what is she doing and why is she doing this? Oh my God. All right, so then we're going to take the back, let me get it flipped where it looks like it's supposed to. Okay. So what I need to do is take this front piece and this back piece and put them right sides together like so, holding my facings out of the way. I'm going to pin this and then I'm going to stitch it on the sewing machine. And once that's stitched, I'll be able to flip it around like so, and this will go on the inside of the facings, and I can slip stitch the facings together over the top. And that's one arm right there, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to push this side seam out of the way, and I'm going to take the front, here it is, like this, and I'm going to match it up with the right side, not the inside, but the outside. Maybe that's the way I should say it. The outside of the front strap matches up with the outside of the back. And if you think, I have no idea what she means by that, you just want the folded in piece, this right here, they want to be opposite of each other, like this. So fold it on this side, fold it on this side, and these two touching. So it should look like this. I mean, it looks like a mess. It really does. I get that. But it also is the way it has to be. So make sure that your side seams look like this. The straps are the same length. You don't have one way up and one way down. This folded edge and this folded edge are in the same place, like that. And that. And then we're going to stitch on the sewing machine. If it's really difficult to stitch it on the sewing machine, you could probably do this part by hand, as long as you can make good strong stitches by hand. Just keep your fold out of the way. So one thing that I wanted to do before I hand stitch the shoulders the way they're supposed to be stitched is I want to apply some fray check to this fabric. I want to make sure I don't get it on my garment because it is a plastic and I don't want that to be evident on, you know, this part of the garment. I just want a little bit along the edge. So I have kind of one of my raggedy little press cloth pieces right here. I'm going to pull all of my shoulder, other outer fabric that's going to show, and I'm going to pin it like so, just to get it stabilized. And then I'm going to take my fray check out of the envelope that I keep the fray check in. The reason that I keep my fray check in this envelope, not just the fray check but the package, is because there is a incredible resemblance to this product bottle with eye drops, and it must be very prevalent. It must be an issue because on the back it literally tells you what to do if you get it in your eye and what not to do if you get it in your eye. So I just keep all of these bits and bobs together in an envelope marked fray check. So I will not be taken by surprise by a bottle of Dritz fray check as eye drops. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to just apply it, and it does take several minutes. I think in this case it's probably going to take about 3 minutes for this to completely dry. But as you can see, it's definitely darkened up the edge of the fabric. So I don't want to mess with this while it's wet. I'm just going to let it sit here and be drying. And when I come back, I will show you how to basically slip stitch this top together so that it just looks seamless and pretty. And then all we have left is a little bit more pressing. I did do some pressing around the armhole, the arm side, and the front of the jumper and the back of the jumper around the neck edge. The main thing we need to think about is, do we want to hem it right away or do we want to let it hang? And I think I'm going to let it hang at least 24 hours. And that way all the stretch will relax out of the fabric. It will be at its longest, and then when I hem it, it won't like hang in a closet and get kind of wonky, because then the fabric would be relaxing. I'm going to try to get all that to relax before I start to hem it. I and as you guys may know, I don't pull, when I need thread to thread on a needle, I don't pull it from my needle on my sewing machine. I will pull it from the bobbin. I don't want to bend or, you know, cause harm to my needle on my sewing machine by pulling thread through it that might cause a problem. Okay, so I have decided what I'm going to do. It's not really a problem, but at the same time it kind of is. But I don't really like the fact that there is still a lot of gap between where the folds are and where my shoulder is, the actual front and back. So I'm going to stitch by hand. I'm going to stitch this a little bit, ouch, closer, just by doing a running stitch, so that my shoulder will finish off really pretty when I do that slip stitch. Is it necessary to do this? No. Am I doing it because I want to? Yes. Do I often do things like that? Yes. As you can see, I'm basically just doing a running stitch, and I'm just getting it close enough to the edges, which I'll show you when I get over there. You want to go all the way through to the front and the back. Okay, and then right here along this edge, I'm just gonna kind of stitch a couple times. You know, take the needle to the back, bring the needle to the front. I'm not being all that picky because all of this is going to be hidden inside of this shoulder facing. Now I really do think that made a difference. I'm gonna just make a little knot right about here. Okay, cut that off, and now I feel like I need more thread to do that nice slip stitch. A lot of people have asked me how I thread my hand sewing needles when I'm so seriously sight challenged. Is I take my thread and I make a loop like so, and I fold it over my needle like this, and then I pinch it between my thumb and my forefinger. I line up the eye of the needle. I don't even really have to be that precise, and I just kind of push the eye of the needle over the fold, and it just almost always will thread my needle. Now sometimes if the eye of the needle is smaller than my thread weight, it will be kind of difficult. But I've been doing that for a long time and I haven't really had a problem. I also promised I would never ever give a tutorial on how to thread a needle. And here we are. I was asked, so. Okay, now I really kind of want to clean it up. I don't want a lot of thread showing. I do like this much better. We need to make sure that we bury the knot in the folded part of our shoulder. And I'm going to be pretty picky about these threads. It might drive you nuts that I'm doing it, but I cannot abide by a bunch of thread sticking out of seams and whatnot. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to come up on the seam on that side right there, push this under. I want the side seams to match like that. And it's honestly, in my book, it's just a matter of manipulation. I don't really know how to oh, there's another thread. How to explain. The thing that you need to do is you need to have your thread either be in a seam or so tiny, the stitch so tiny that the thread doesn't show and it's not an issue. All while lining up these side seams and shoulder seams. Okay, there we go. And I need my ham. A ham is also a great way to hold fabric when you're trying to stitch. I think that's actually what they might have been created for. Okay. And the size of the stitch that you make on one side should be the same on the other side. And I'm pulling these pretty darn tight. I think if I were using a like a quilting weight cotton, it really would not require the amount of force that I'm using, because this is quite a bit heavier. This fabric is. It truly feels like a tweed, like a wool. Let's see, we're going to take a little look. I do like the way it looks. I do need to press these shoulder seams a little bit, and what I'd like to do is get this top stitching done. Let's read about that real quick. Top stitch 1/4 inch from the finished neck and armhole edges, which is what they show in the photo, or I keep saying photo, it's the guide drawings. Okay, so it would just be top stitch, you know, all the way around, kind of to match your front stitch down the front. Now, before I do the top stitch, what I'd like to do they say to do this? I don't think they do. No, they don't. Okay, so I'm going to stitch in the ditch right along this side seam, catching the facing, and that really helps hold it down. It won't, you know, flip out and be all kind of weird and silly like that. So let me go ahead and do that. Straight stitch. And I do want to stay right in the, you know, my needle inside of that seam. It's called stitching in the ditch. I don't want it visible. If possible. And I don't have to go all the way down. I'm just going to stop, take 2 back steps, just stop right at the edge where the facing ends. Now remember, this is on the underarm side seam. Okay. And there it is, right there. If you looked, you might see it, but most people aren't going to be looking in that particular area, thank goodness. Alright, same thing on the other side. We are going to stitch in the ditch just to keep that facing down inside the jumper, which means, of course, it needs to be down when I stitch. Okay. Now, the next thing is I do the same thing on most of the jumpers that I make. I also do a stitch like that across the top of the shoulder, but I don't need to on this one because we did that interesting armhole edge. Okay. This is pretty goopy. I'm going to just see if I can get my sewing machine to go over it. I don't know if it will. We will see. I'm going to pull my stitching up to 3 and drop my needle manually. It's so cute. It did. It turned out adorable. Okay. I'm going to move my sewing machine and lay this out so that you can see how cute it is. Okay. So get all these silly threads off. My sewing room just seems to grow thread. It's the weirdest thing. Honestly, I can vacuum and vacuum and vacuum and vacuum. I can use sticky tape and all kinds of things to get all these little threads, and within 10 minutes, well, less than that actually, I'm right back where I was. Okay, so here is the front bodice and the lining right there. The shoulders, as you can see, that's the top stitching, and this is the front seam. These are the darts right here. There's one here and one over there. Well guys, so this jumper is complete. It is going to hang up for a little bit longer than 24 hours. I'm going to let it hang probably for 2 days, because even though it is the length that we agreed upon, Jessica has decided that she kind of wants it a little bit longer, and that's fine. And I can even, you know, make my hem tiny. This fabric, this isn't the jumper, this is leftover fabric, but this fabric is so easy to turn under and do a tiny little hem that I don't need to worry that I won't be able to get as much length out of it as I can. She came by, she had gone out to ride her horse, and she just was driving by, and she stopped in to see it because I told her it was ready. And of course she tried it on and she loves it, which is so gratifying. I am thrilled to death. She also feels, without my input, I think, I don't remember if we discussed it or not, but her words were, it just has so much structure, and it has kind of a 60s vibe. So it's hanging up on a kind of a hanger over on the other side of the room. So I'm going to, I think, try to, oh, I'll be right back. I have biscuits in the oven and the timer's beeping. I'll be right back. Well, my plan was to try to swing the camera around so that you guys could see it, but I can't do that, so I'm going to take a picture of it hanging up, and then we'll get pictures when it's hemmed and everything is ready. I will insert this picture that I just took in here somewhere so that you can see it. And the next one, of course, is for Candice. It is the Easy Stitch and Save by McCall's, and we'll be starting on that in the next couple of days. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, I sure hope you will consider doing so, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!